because everyone's like, this isn't real life. Like we're like, everyone's switched on to the fact that these celebrities are all molded by a marketing agency, and these YouTubers are trying to be this perfect character for like these kids. But I think the irony of it all is like, I think it was more damaging than good.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today I am joined by Lou, who I've known for a really long amount of time actually, since secondary school, and he's gone on to do some really, really cool things. You know, at the moment he's living his best life as a rock star. He's a TikToker, social media content creator, and it's been really interesting to watch his journey over the last 10 years really since we left school. And so yeah, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today.
That's all right, man. I get asked to do a couple of podcasts, and I think like sometimes I'm always wary of like the audiences and what they'll ask and where they've come from, and like I always like go into that. And when you asked, I was like, how random that we just used to be neighbours, and we like didn't really speak. Like we like said hello in passing, and like we always knew about each other. And I think our sisters were quite good friends at one point. I don't know. So I always knew you existed. And then when you like come on a podcast, I'm like, that's so interesting that we came from like houses next door to each other, and then like came round in our lives, and then have like rejoined, like paths have recrossed, which is so strange.
Yeah, mate, I'm a big believer in that. I'm not sure I believe in coincidences anymore. I really am not. I just think that, and I'm not sure I necessarily believe in fate either, but I do think that there's moments in our life where whatever the kind of the plan that we're doing, we just relink with people that are, like-minded. And so I think I completely agree. It's such a bizarre thing to go from, like you say, being basically neighbours and just, not really speaking, to kind of still being on each other's radar for, the 10 years, and then, completely different, but obviously massive similarities at the same time.
It's like so strange as well, because I remember like coming across you. I can't remember what it was, but like I remember seeing a picture. I don't know if my mom showed me or something like that, and was just like, and I remember seeing you, and like I don't remember exactly what you looked like before, but you definitely didn't look like that. Like I just saw this like rich guy, and I'm like, that's not the guy I lived next door to like 5 years ago. I remember it's crazy. Obviously, I've changed a lot as well. But yeah, it was so mad to just like come across you when you said to like come on to like do a podcast. I was like, fuck yeah. How random
it is. Cool. It's so strange as well. Loads of people have said the same thing, because at school, like I was so short, I was so skinny. Like I don't think I really hit puberty till I left, to be honest.
Same. So I like
so then like
the same, literally the same as you. Like I was just this tiny little skinny kid. I was like, through secondary school I opened up a bit, but I was just shy and like just like quiet. And then like something happened. I was about 19. A demon entered me, and it made me who I am today.
Mate, I love it though. You found yourself, and you can see that because let's talk social media as an example of that. Your TikTok following, Instagram following, just your social media presence as a whole. You don't build that kind of following by being unauthentic or trying to play a role. People like authenticity. They like to see they like to see people who are being true to themselves and have entertainment. So what I want to do with you, really, the reason why I asked you on today is because there's so much to kind of unwrap here with you. I mean, you've got your music, you've got your social media, you've got other business things that I've seen as well, which I think is really, really cool. So let's talk how it all began. So social media, that's such a big thing. It's so relevant in most people's lives. But what was the inspiration into getting into the content creation side? Because 10 years ago, 5 years ago, being a influencer or content creator, it wasn't taken seriously as an opportunity to have a career in.
100%. So I actually started YouTube at like what was like one of the heights of YouTube, with like there was all like Casper Lee and Joe Sugg, and these like they were like proper like they were almost like celebrities for kids back then when I was like 16. But I like started doing YouTube videos then, because like every kid wanted to be a YouTuber, and like you do it, your friends take the piss because, like you said, it's not taken seriously. And like the one thing that everyone who starts a YouTube channel will hear is like, oh, you're still doing your little YouTube thing. And it's always that little YouTube thing. It's like, so it literally is belittling. You're like, you're literally calling it small, because no one, no, they just see it as this little, oh, you're still doing that little YouTube thing. And then like, it's always like, oh, what are you going to do for like work and stuff like that? But so for the first few years, I was a little bit lost. I was always so sold on that I would be a YouTuber. That was like that's it. That's my path. So I did that for years, like maybe like 3 years, and it got nowhere. Like less than 1,000 subscribers. I was uploading. I would go through like bits with it where I was really motivated, but I would upload like once a week for like 6 months. Then I'd drop off a bit. But I was putting like hundreds of pounds into videos, and I never took like full-time hours at work. So I would always take like part-time hours at jobs, because I was convinced that like something was going to work itself out. And I always used to say to people, like, oh, I'm going to be famous one day. And they'd go, how? And I'd go, I don't really know yet. Which is like kind of ironic in the end, because I really couldn't have known what the thing was, because I wasn't even doing what I do now back then. So like, it's really strange that like, maybe I did know, or maybe I was just being overconfident. But that sort of went on, and I tried Vine when that came about, and I dipped in and out. And then I did eventually come to that point where I was like, I might have to just work, because you like get to that age where like you can't really get away with just doing part-time anymore. I still did, but now it's looked at differently. Like now I'm past 21, and now I've not had a full-time job, because I think I'm going to be a YouTuber. And now it's getting to the point where like it is silly to a lot of people. And then, so I was like 21, I was working in a restaurant, and for the first time in my life, I was like coming to terms with the fact that like, this was it. Like this thing that I'd been saying since I was 13, oh, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to do something in my life. Like I'd come to this realization. I was like, fuck, like I'm now in a job. It would be like 2 a.m. in the morning, and I was like a manager at a restaurant. So I'm like doing like the books and stuff, like everyone's leaving. It's like 2 a.m. It's just these like really dark times for me, where I'm just like sat here every night, like early in the morning at that point. And I've like had these dreams my whole life, and I've put everything into it, and it hasn't worked. And I'm at this point, I'm like, fuck, like I didn't do it. And it's the first time ever I've stopped making YouTube videos. I stopped everything. And then TikTok came about. It was about for a while, but I remember first, like everyone did, I was like, oh, it was like that lip syncing app. And it was like really shit. Yeah. I won't say it in front of my girlfriend. She used to love it. She's been doing it for years. You're not listening, are you, Melody? That's good. It was like the shitty lip syncing app. She's got like 1 million followers on TikTok. And it's just a lip syncing app, and I took the mick out of it. And then it's sort of like we're like heading into like 20, I can't remember. But this YouTuber from TGF, Jay Swingley, used to come and eat in my restaurant. And I've never really been like fame struck by anyone, so I just treated him like a normal person. And we got into like the top of conversation once. Like they've got like 6 million on YouTube, and like I've watched them growing up. But I've never been a huge fan. But I was definitely a fan of like their work ethic. And he used to come into the restaurant. And one day we got talking, and he messaged me on Instagram that night, and he said, "Are you still at work?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Not for long, ha ha ha." And I was like, what? And he picked me up after work, and he hired me into their YouTube channel, and I never went back. And like I've never worked at a job since. So I went to help them out for a while, and then I just started making TikToks at that point. They started like blowing up at that point. So then I've got like TikTok's like blowing up, and then like I'm helping this big YouTube channel. Like everything seems to be going in the right way, and I sort of like started getting interested in music at that point, but it was like terrible. Like they're still on Spotify, but I used to make like, it was just awful. But like the problem is like when you're making something and it's like your first time doing it, but more eyes are seeing it, you kind of get more judgment, if that makes sense. Like it's not like if like someone now who's 15 and has no Instagram makes a song, then it's terrible. It doesn't matter because no one hears it. But when you've got like a little bit of a following and you make a bad song, like there's a lot more people hearing that bad song than they usually would. So at this point, I've kind of got like 3 things going on at once. I've kind of got this Instagram and TikTok together, and I'm like, this could be like a path for me. And I've got like this TGF thing, and then I've got like the music thing. And then they all sort of merged into one. And then the TGF thing, like I just wasn't able to like give it all. And I knew that like leaving the TGF stuff to pursue my own thing was a big risk, because they carried me for the year and a half or so. And it was always like a fallback for me. But this last year, was it last year? Yeah, like last year, I just like dropped everything to focus on music full time. And it was a pretty rough year financially last year. But I knew it was for the right reasons. And like, I feel like if you're not uncomfortable and you're not taking those risks, like you can't ever be comfortable, and I was way too comfortable in the fact that like that was my safety net, and it was stopping me pushing myself because I was staying around to help those with their thing, to grow their thing without actually focusing on my own thing. So last year was a bit rough, but literally just at the end of last year, I put on my first ever gig. It sold out in like 20 minutes. I got signed to like a management straight after that, and now the sort of social media and music is like one thing. So like I'm like you said, and then I've got like my merch line and stuff like that. So I feel like they've got loads of little things, but it's sort of become one, if that makes sense. Like it's all one. It's all towards one goal. And like, for the first time this year, I feel like everything's not calm at all, but like going in the right direction. So it's been a bit crazy, to be fair. So like it went from literally making YouTube videos in my bedroom, and I was honestly 9 years. What's that? 16. Yeah, like 9 years until I could financially hold myself from that. So it's not been a short journey whatsoever. But on my own, to hold myself financially, it was like 9 years before I actually got anywhere with it. So people only see a very little
YouTube's such a difficult... Yeah, it's so difficult, YouTube. You hear it time and time again where, you know, people are just, they're grafting for years, you know, at massive financial loss before they even break even. And then all of a sudden, it's just like a snowball, isn't it?
Man, it's insane.
It's great to see that it's great to see that you're finally there in terms of you've got multiple revenue streams and you're really making headway on that sort of stuff. So I mentioned it briefly, and I think I understand why you've got such a big TikTok following and following in general, but what do you think the reason is?
I think the internet in general has changed a lot in the last like 5 or 6 years. I think there was a stage of YouTube where, and kind of like, I don't register, like, I don't class myself as famous, but I mean like famous and celebrities in general always used to be these perfect characters. They were perfect, they were flawless, they all looked the same way, they were all perfect, they were all like, none of them smoked or drinked or anything, like they were, well, on the surface, but the idea that got portrayed to you was these perfect people with perfect lives, and they don't have any problems, and they don't have anything, they're perfect, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't swear, they're like these, and the same with YouTube, and the same with like mainstream celebrities. And then there was this turn a couple of years ago with people like Ryan Reynolds, and like, I can't think of any more, but like a lot of YouTubers like the TGS stuff, and there's a lot of other content creators that come out there that were like these raw, like imperfect characters, and the internet sort of shifted where everyone got to realize that like they're looking at these YouTube people, these celebrities, they're like, that's not real. Like everyone clocked on to like the internet was so new, like I don't think anyone had realised, and then everyone started clocking on to like this is such a fake life they're living, like everything is so fake, and no one all of a sudden within the space of a few years no one could connect to these fake characters anymore because everyone's like, this isn't real life, like we're like, everyone's switched on to the fact that these celebrities are all moulded by a marketing agency, and that these YouTubers are trying to be this perfect character for like these kids. But I think the irony of it all is like, I think it was more damaging than good. I think like showing kids that like I'm not a perfect character, like I'm this huge celebrity, and look what happens to me, like I get sad, like this happens to me, I swear sometimes, like I slip up. I think the irony of it all with like trying to portray these perfect characters is they did the complete opposite thing, and they just, and like I think nowadays, like you said, you mentioned about authenticity, I think like people can just tell if it's fake, like with these Instagram models now doing that thing where they do like this is what I look like with perfect lighting. And like a lot of it in the fitness community as well, it became like a big thing to be like, this is just lighting. Like you aren't going to always look this perfect. Like I take these photos with specific lighting, like gym lighting is set from like above so that in the mirror you look toned and all this kind of stuff like that. Yeah. And I think there became a big thing where like everyone was like, no, this is what you actually look like. And I think that's so much more healthy. And I think like for me, that was easier for me, because I would have found it so hard to pretend I was some like perfect character, and all of a sudden it's okay for me to just exist and like swear and like say dumb shit sometimes and like make mistakes and like, do you know what I mean? And like you can post TikToks of you drinking and stuff like that, and like people love that kind of stuff now, and it's such a juxtaposition to what I used to be. But I think like for me, it felt like it come around at the right time, and it was worth waiting, because I've now joined an internet where I don't have to be some fake person. So I think the following just comes from that, really. Like I won't redo a photo if I have like a bogey in my nose or something. I'll just mention it as a joke, and like it's just little things like that. Like you just, I think I just don't care, and that's what's important.
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head there as well, because I think Instagram specifically, Instagram became this app where everybody was portraying their best because, the pictures would do well. Like, I remember back in the day when I was competing and I was absolutely shredded, like my photos would, like, before all of the algorithm changes and restrictions on business accounts, my photos would go crazy because I was just in on a healthy kind of body composition where it was just nuts. It was out of the ordinary. So people were like fascinated, like kind of like a mini freak show. So people would like interact with it. It would go nuts. And I think that's one aspect you mentioned, obviously, about the lighting. And I think we've just become more aware as a general populace that it's a highlight reel,
100%.
And people, like you say, like, even if they're not celebrities, it's just everybody is uploading their like best images or, the best moments. And I think, particularly something over the last couple of years that I've noticed is people are talking about their mental health. People are, these really, rich, influential people on, obviously, they're not immune to those sorts of things. And the more openness that we've had and people, especially with guys as well, like the more people that come out and say, look, I've had my fair share of troubles. And it's still weird to me that we live in this world where when someone comes out and says that, particularly as guys, our first impression or our first gut instinct is, I would never have expected that said person to have gone through that.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's really, really weird to me because we all have a brain. We all have problems in our lives. We all experience trauma. And yet we still have that kind of instant thought.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it's like, it's so much, you almost see like a change every year with it though. Like, it gets better. It's getting so much more healthy to talk about things like that. But I think it's things like when Robin Williams died, everyone was so shocked. They're like, how can this like guy who's like so happy? Yeah. And I'm like, but this is all like, this is I say 99.999% of the people that are saying, oh my God, I'd never expected it, didn't know him. They knew the pictures and they knew the movies, and they're all characters. The pictures were characters. Even on red carpets, people were playing characters. Like, you never knew Robin Williams at all. You knew like a minuscule sliver in the pie of his life, like a tiny little sliver, and you were like, how could he have done this? And it's like, you didn't see the 99.999%. And it's just so funny that everyone's like, I can't believe this. So you don't know him. Like, no one knew. And I think it's like, now, like I said, like, people are just much more open, and you do see a bit more of if it was the pie chart, you do see a bit more of people's pie, which sounds fucking weird. It's a strange analogy.
Sounds like a terrible euphemism. That sounds like a horrendous euphemism.
And I just think that's healthier for people. And like, I get so many messages, and I think my favorite messages to get are the ones that are like, I think when the first hearing it, I was like, I remember like one of the first messages I got, and it was like, oh, you've really helped me through a tough time. And I'm sat there thinking, what the fuck did I do? And I was like, that was stupid. I think I probably replied to it, but I was probably like, oh, I don't really know how, but thank you. And then like a few, like, I would get more, and I was like, what? And then like, I think of it like, it was a simple thing. I'm actually friends with him now. There's a guy called Sam Tompkins. He's a music artist, and I used to watch him a while ago. He's only like, Sam, like a year older than me. It's like about a year older than me, but I just watched him as like a fan for quite a while. And I saw him paint his nails ages and ages ago, and like I'd seen people do it before. I knew it was still a bit rough back then. You would definitely get called some homophobic slurs for it. But I painted my nails because of him, and I just think that one thing that he did really did change my life. Maybe not as profound as like something apparently I have for these other people, but like, I started painting my nails because one person, and I have ever since, and it's something I genuinely enjoy doing as an expression of myself. And I'm thinking, God, this person that I watched on the internet as a fan, who back then was even in a smaller situation than I was, he maybe had like 10, 20,000 followers on Instagram, and I thought he was like this huge celebrity to me, and it changed like the course of my life. And I remember realizing that, and I was like, fuck, this guy did one little thing and made that feel okay for me. He made me feel like I was okay to do that. And I was like, it was just mind blowing to me, because I was like, God, like now I can have that impact. And like sometimes it does feel a bit like, what if I'm teaching people the wrong thing? But then, like you said, I'm just a person, just a human. I'm not pretending I'm like a role model. I'm not pretending I'm good. I'm not pretending the kids should do everything I do. I'm just here for entertainment purposes only.
I think that's the thing, you know. I think everybody for so long, and especially myself, like for so long, I wanted to be liked by everyone. But the older I've got, I've just realised that it's impossible. And I read something recently, and it stayed with me. It was really profound, actually. And the quote was, "People view you through the lens of their experience in the world, and they don't actually know you. So the thing is, like, you could be your authentic self and someone would love you based on their experience of the world. But then also, you know, just because someone else has had a different experience, they could hate you. And that's got nothing to do with you. And there's nothing that you can do to change that.
I think it's like, people I always say to people about music, and it can work the same with people. It's like someone's favorite song is someone can't stand. Like someone's song that is like so personal to them, that this is the best song in the world, someone else hates, and it's all because of the life they lived and how they take that song. Like I could not listen to a death metal song in my life. Like I just listen to it and I'm like, oh, that's horrible. And then but there's these concerts that are selling millions and millions of tickets for death metal. It doesn't mean I'm right. I'm not like an overwhelming power. And I think as soon as you realise that that's just your subjective opinion on anything, and like your opinion doesn't matter, like it's so much more important. And I think there's people that really do think their opinion matters, become so, you know what I mean? Like I think it's just good to share rather than attack. Like if you don't like something, it's not going, oh, that's horrible. It's just going, I don't really like that personally. And I think that one change in how you approach the world is so important. And I definitely was that guy that was like, that's shit, I hate that. And then like now I'm just like, that's not for me. And just that one little change in my mindset was so healthy for me. And that's the same. You can take the same with people. It's like if I don't like a person now, I'm going, oh, fuck that guy, I hate that guy. I'll just be like, I'm just not a fan. And just those little wordings of things like was just so healthy for me to realise in my own brain. So you're right, 110%. Agree.
So let's talk. One thing that I'm fascinated by is I've had my own experience, and I think society now is changing. You know, because like I said to you in the initial few minutes of this, so many things weren't available when we were growing up. You know, YouTube wasn't a career as such. You know, there were some people making money from it. Gaming, like, you know, what you're doing, it's, you know, what you're doing with music, it's difficult. It's like highly competitive, and you know, so many people kind of see those as pipe dreams and unrealistic expectations. So what was your experience, you know, leaving school? You said that you were doing, you know, not full-time work and those sorts of things. What was the kind of pressure that you were under, or was there any societal expectation that you experienced that you kind of had to overcome?
I think I've never been necessarily bothered by societal expectations. I don't think that's bothered past a certain age. I've definitely like less and less cared as I got older. I think for me, the expectation that bothered me the most was the expectation on age and what you should have done by a certain age, and that timeline that people followed. I think that, I guess that is a type of societal pressure, to be fair. But I think that very specific thing really irritated me. I think it's growing up, like you have your parents that lived in a very different world and were working full-time jobs at 13 and had a house by 15 or whatever. Like it's like everyone's nan had a house when they were 9 or something like that. Like I just like had that stuck in my head, and I tried to pretend it didn't bother me. But as I got older and older, like I was willing to wait and knew that it would work over time. But as I was waiting for that time to come, I have friends getting married, and I have friends having kids, and I have friends having houses. And that's when the pressure starts building, because like everything around me is like everyone coming out of school and college is like, yeah, like I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then 90% of people, and maybe I'd argue more than that, like give up on what they originally wanted to do. And I didn't. So I felt like it was all around me. Like when you leave school, everyone's going to be a footballer. They're going to be this, they're going to be that, they're going to be that. And then that one's had a kid and got a job and moved out, and now he works in a factory. You know, she's gone to do this and she's gone to do that. And then there's the minuscule amount remaining, and I've sat there like everyone around me settled into these lives that they're supposed to have because that's what you do. I'm sat there like, and then it just got more and more. So it got to the point where I'm like, wow, like, am I like, you do start like you had this raw confidence, and then you get to the point where you're like questioning, like, man, like, do I need to? Would it be easier if I just got a normal job? And then I even got to the point where I'm like looking for like jobs where I can do this, and like it's weird because I've always had the thought that like if you have a plan B, then like you've already lost. Like you've already failed by having a plan B because your plan A should be that's knowing it's not going to work in a way. I know that sounds, maybe that's wrong, but I've always had that thought. And like for a while, like last year, like I said, a couple of years ago, I was losing it. I'd lost it and I was making a plan B and I was like, fuck, this isn't me. I think that was my biggest pressure, was that I was getting older. And I think a good thing that I started seeing things about, like Tom Hardy didn't become an actor until he was 40, and like these stories like that. Robert Downey Jr. was in prison till he was 30 odd or something like that. And I started seeing these things, and like it became really important to me to try and drill into myself that like your timeline matters more than anybody else's. Like everyone's timeline's completely different. Do you know what I mean? People are drug addicts until they're 50, and then they become millionaires. Like I think we forget how much time we've got in our 20s. Like I think for me, so that's the only pressure that bothered me. I don't care what anyone else thinks about what I look like. I just care if they think I'm old.
Don't forget don't forget the most important one. Colonel Sanders started KFC. I think it was at like 52.
Yeah, I swear the McDonald's guys were quite older. As well. Yeah, like you hear all these things and it's just crazy. And I think we live in a generation as well where like kids are blowing up on the internet, and now they're having the career I wanted at 14. And like then they're having the music career I haven't got, and they're 14 as well. And I'm like, God, am I too late? But no.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because even though I would agree, like I'm not particularly materialistic, but it's weird how we're programmed to think about success. Because in the UK, I mean, I don't know whether it's a UK thing, but that's what I'll say is the success marker is, you know, the marriage, the family, the kids, the house, the car. And it's so weird to me because the more I've read, the more I've developed, the more I've kind of explored, it's what is actually important to you is probably the most valuable question we can ask ourselves. Because does a car make you happy? No. I mean, it's a nice thing to have if you can afford it. Like, does a house make you happy? Not necessarily. And even a family, you know, particularly with divorce rates the way that they are, you know what, my mum and dad got divorced when I was really young. So,
same.
You know, if you look at the statistics, I mean, look at the statistics. I think we're in a real tricky situation where a lot of people are rushing to tick those boxes because they want the next thing will essentially make them happy. And then they get it and they're like, oh, well, actually now I'm still not happy. So, you know, the engagement, like maybe we need to get married or get a dog or, you know, the next step on the ladder. And I think that so many people just don't take the time to go, what do I actually want?
People like need to, I think the problem is people don't start with the source. They start with like the externals and they try and work their way in, which isn't really how it works. So if you're unhappy, you don't change the things around you to make you happy. You change how you think about those things. I think like it's just very much a perspective thing. Like someone that's homeless is going to enjoy the house that you hate and you need bigger. And then there's people in mansions that hate the size of the house because they need a second pool. It's all just perspective based. So it's not those individual things, or everyone in the world would be happy because someone would be happy with it. It doesn't make sense. An item doesn't have a happiness meter on it. It's just how the person views that item. I think starting with here is the most important thing. I've definitely done exactly the same thing. Bought a car, bought nice cars, and bought these things to try and, you know what I mean? I've done the same. I've drank myself to death. You know what I mean? I've gone off and done drugs to try and solve these problems that I had when I was like, this was when I was like 19. I was super sad. And I started trying to change these external things. Like, oh, I'll buy this and I'll go out because this will make me happy. And I'll go here and I'll spend this money. And nothing changes. It's just, you're just putting off the inevitable. You mentioned earlier, like, you don't think you actually hit puberty until you're like older, like left school. But I think like mentally there was definitely a stage between like 19 and 20, 21, where maybe not necessarily puberty, but my mind definitely just absolutely spun. And like everything, I hate who I was when I was like 18, 19. Like I just hate that person. because that wasn't me, because I was so immature in how I viewed the world, and I would have been so unhappy with these things. But yeah, I think it is. I think you're right with that. It's crazy how people view things, trying to change everything rather than change themselves. It's a bizarre concept, really.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I don't know whether it's because I think subconsciously, I think we're all aware that it's an internal thing. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I think it's easier to solve everything from an external point of view, because you're like, oh, it's, if I go shopping, it's like it's you pushing the problem to one side for a little bit, giving yourself a little bit of serotonin boost and making yourself feel better for a little while. And then that doesn't work, so you do it again. So I think it's just kicking the can down the road, isn't it? I think potentially people are aware that obviously it's an internal thing, but it's easier to address the external. And internal looking and going in and doing some shadow work is difficult. It's horrible. It's tough. Yeah. And doing that sort of thing it's worth it, but it's uncomfortable. I wish more people would, and that's kind of the reason why I started this podcast, because I wanted to showcase how people can do that and inspire and motivate people to look at themselves and show people that there isn't just one road to success, the stereotypical, road. And to be honest, if that road is for you, then that's absolutely 100%. Fine. I've got no problems with that, but it's just, I don't think it's for everyone. And I want to make sure that as many people can hear different stories about different people, so that they can go, do you know what? Like, no disrespect to you, Lou, or to anyone in any industry, there's nothing special about any of these people.
No way.
They're just doing and following their passions.
Yeah.
That's it, and I think that when I got into the fitness realm, I was very lucky. I think that was my instant click in my brain. Like, I went to a body power show, I don't know, 2014, 2013 years ago. And I looked at these athletes that were famous on social media and competing and doing stuff. And I just broke it down analytically. What are they doing right now that I'm not? So what do I have to do to get in a position where I can compete? What do I have to do?
You've frozen.
Is it there?
I hear you. Hello?
I'm still here.
Wait, okay, you're back. I don't know what's happened. I was waiting to see if I could hear you. I could hear.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I couldn't hear you or see you, but I think it still records. So unless one of us jumps out, we'll just keep going.
100%, yeah.
So yeah, I looked at them and just thought, basically, what are they doing right now that I'm not? And what do I need to implement into my life and into my business to get to that kind of level? And I just kind of unpacked that and was like, okay, this is the routines that they have. This is the rituals that they have. The most successful people that I can see from the numbers and in terms of happiness and full kind of embodiment were people that were into self-development. They were into the business side of things. They were doing things in a certain way. And I was like, okay, cool. Now I'm not going to carbon copy that, because obviously I need to find my voice and what works for me. But this is the avenue that I'm going to go down now. And I'm going to go down full effort, no holding back. And I think that I experienced something very similar. When I was getting into the PT realm, people would say to me, yeah, okay, cool. It's great being a personal trainer, but, get a real job on the side of things as well, so that you've got money to come. And I remember thinking at the time, similar to what you said, real. That was the word in there that just struck a chord with me. I was like, what's a real job? I'm getting paid doing that. So that's real. Okay. Yes. Okay, of course the fitness industry has changed. 10 years ago, nobody was going to the gym.
No.
Not really. Not compared to now.
Now it's
everybody,
routine.
Everybody goes to the gym now. Yeah. It's a cultural thing. Everyone does it. The look, the aesthetic of the appealing man, I'll put it, has changed because of, films. If you look at films 20 years ago versus films now, at least this is my theory and my take on it. Look at the superhero films. Those guys are jacked.
huge. Yeah, sorry, it's just like really delayed. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
all caught up.
yeah, they're jacked, and that's the thing. I think I've said it a few times. I think we're as guys now experiencing the similar effects to what size zero was for women, because now you've got guys that are, you know, we're essentially being told that the ideal image is this massive, muscular, superhero looking character, and not many people
No,
can
no, no,
relate to that.
100%.
You know, like I said, when I first started the gym, I was super skinny. Like I was really, really small. I was really, really lean. So like I wouldn't like if I saw that now, that would give me a little bit of an issue because I'd be like, that's not what I
Yeah,
look
yeah,
like
yeah.
at all. And obviously, hey, that's an individual thing. Like whatever you want your body to look like is fine. Like I have no problems if you do want to look like that, but I do think that there's a problem when society kind of makes it like this is what we should look like. And I think that's kind of the direction that we're heading in with the superhero films. In any films, like everybody is just jacked at the moment. It's crazy. So let's get onto your music. Yeah. I think I'd really like to know. So you said you got into it and you were interested. What was the inspiration behind that choice? Because you just started with TGF doing the YouTube stuff and kind of had a second lease of life on that. To then go, okay, cool. Like actually, I'm really interested in music. What was the inspiration behind that choice?
How I got into music was really strange, to be honest, because I went to a school where music was a huge deal, but was never ever interested in it. And I always liked music, but then I went off to uni when I was 18. Dropped out after a year, come back home. I was just chilling. I think I got like a job at a restaurant. And my friend left like a bright pink little ukulele at my house. I'd always enjoyed the idea of like imagining, like I'd always wanted to play the guitar, but I'd like pick it up and I'd be like, I'm really bad at it now. I say this to her all the time, but like I was like, oh, I can't do it, so that's it. Like I never took the time to learn. I was like, oh, I can't play it. Obviously, I fucking couldn't play it. I'd never tried, but I was like annoyed that I couldn't play it straight away. So my friend left this ukulele at my house. I just picked it up one day and I googled like how to play a song on a ukulele, and I just started playing it. Then he took it back. I got my own ukulele and I was like playing that. So I started playing these songs. I found it really satisfying to play like these songs that you know so well. Like you're playing along, like these sounds are coming from this ukulele, and I think it almost gave me the feeling I was playing a guitar.
Yeah.
So like I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then from that, I started writing lyrics down. At the age of like 19, I was super, super depressed, and I still have like the lyrics like on like a Google Drive folder. They're so sad. That kid was going through some shit. But I would like, so I started writing lyrics down, and it became like I didn't notice this until like years after, but it did become like a therapy to me. And that's like a really generic thing to say about lyrics, but I think it was just a way to like they were really deep and deeper than I would ever have spoken them. So like I would have said to someone like, oh yeah, like I'm like a bit sad or whatever, even if I'd have said that. But on the pages, I'm like giving you like metaphors to like how I feel and stuff like that. And I found it really, really satisfying to unload like that. Then it just progressed from there. I started playing guitar a little bit. I started making like kind of rappy music, but it just wasn't hitting for me. And then during lockdown, I made one song, not last December, the December before that it would have come out. And I fell in love with it. It was the first song of mine that I'd heard back. And I remember playing it in my car and being like, oh my God, like I made this. Like I made this song. And I played it. I drove back from my girlfriend's house. It takes like, it was like 3.5 hour drive. Well, actually, I think I was even coming from further than that. I think I was like near Cornwall. And I drove back and I played it for 3 hours. Like on repeat for like 3. I'm not even joking. I did not turn it off. I was so impressed with it. And from then on, like from that one moment, I was like, I need to do this forever for the rest of my life. And I never looked back. I dropped everything a couple months after that. And yeah, it didn't really start working out. I'm still like not making much money from it. The tour's definitely going to put me out of pocket. But yeah, like it's just, I've just known, like it was like that moment where I'm like, this is what I was supposed to do. Like this is what I was supposed to do. And from then I've known. and I've done everything, and every single day, it's all I think about.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Finding your calling is, I think it's such a novel thing, because it just instantly sets a fire in yourself that you're just like, this is what I'm meant to do. And you know as well, you just know, there's no explaining it. If you've never had that sounds terribly egotistical, actually. Like, now I've just listened back to that. If you've not had that experience where you found something that you're just incredibly passionate about and it just sets your soul on fire, it's the best feeling.
It's like that moment where you're like, oh, this is what it is. Like, oh, like this is what I was supposed to be doing. I got it now. It was like that moment.
Yeah.
But more like more intense.
Yeah, it's 100% that stereotypical like light bulb moment where you're like, oh, okay, this is what I feel like I should definitely be doing for the rest of my life. You mentioned something in there that I've never really thought about until you actually said that, is I journal on a regular basis. And, you know, through therapy and through my own research into psychology as well, like, I think, and I've never thought about it, but lyrics are just a form of journaling, because you've written down exactly how you feel in a really creative manner and a really in-depth manner. And then getting that off your chest, that process, like you said, like it sounds stereotypical because you said, like, you know, it is your therapy, but in reality,
like,
it is.
It is. It's like, it actually is. Like, I've always enjoyed words. I've always loved words. I have a reasonably extensive vocabulary for someone that is dyslexic. Can't spell the words, but I've just loved words my whole life, which is strange because I've never been any good at them in an academic aspect. So it was like pointless for me to know all these words. I just enjoyed them. And then when I started writing lyrics down, probably spelled wrong, but I started writing lyrics down. Like it was like it just opened something where it's like finally I can write things down. They don't have to be grammatically correct. They don't even have to be spelt right. They just need to sound good and they need to rhyme. And like I was like, people are like, how do you find rhyming words? I'm like, do you know how many words are in here that I haven't been able to spell for years? So like I come to like write it down. It was like I was just finally like a chance for me to enjoy words without feeling like I was academically stupid because I couldn't spell them, or I forgot grammar, or I forgot this. And it was like you said, like you journal, but I've never been able to do that because I would never be able to find the joy in writing because it was ruined from school. So this is the first time I'd like actually been writing words down and actually enjoying them, and I think that was like the main thing for me. So like it probably is like your journal. I did just write down my feelings, but it's the first time I enjoyed writing them down, and it gave me a purpose to write them down rather than just because I needed to. So it's quite cool. Yeah, it's quite cool to look at it like that, little journal.
And just from a kind of extension of that is when you're then singing and performing it, is that like another form of like release for you? So do you kind of re-experience those emotions that you had initially when you're writing them down, and when you're like expressing them, is that kind of like another way that it
so
offloads?
I think the craziest thing about music is I could write a lyric down that was like really, really like personal to me, and someone else could like also feel that lyric really personal to them, but in a completely different situation. It's quite often like love songs. Like if you wrote a love song about someone, people will like relate to it because it reminds them of their nan, or because it reminds them of a loved one passing, because it's about missing someone. And like some people might miss their dog, and like it's crazy that people can take these lyrics that are so personal to you, and maybe they've had a really similar situation and they're like, oh my god, like I relate to this song, or maybe they just fit it to their situation and they feel it. But I think it's such a powerful thing. And then I go to like singing a song to like a group of people and hearing them sing it back at you is just the most insane experience, because like especially like now I try to write from like experiences that like other people have had and things like that to try and expand my songwriting. But definitely at the start, all very much like personal lyrics happened to me in front of my own eyes. So like it's weird like singing something that's really, really personal to a group of people and they're all singing it back to you, and each one of them, maybe not all of them, but like each one of them in some way has a story that fits that song. And you've got all these people in a room singing a song that we all relate to, but for different reasons. And I just think it's such a powerful like tool for connecting people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if you think about it, it's the human imagination as well, because like you said, they completely lack the context of how and what happens when you were writing those lyrics, what you were thinking on. So they create their own. And then in that, they will find a way to relate to it. Because if they enjoy your music, that means they relate in some way or another. So that means they'll find a situation in their life that reflects those lyrics in some way. Like you said, it could be anything, but they'll find it. So let's talk about the actual creations or the creative side behind the song. So you've got the initial lyric writing. What else goes into that? Because it seems like such a glamorous thing on the exterior. But talk me through the ins and outs. Like, you've got a new song. You've got a new song currently or about to be released. Talk me through what the ins and outs of that were.
For me, before, I was making songs like in my bedroom, and then I would get together with some friends, and we would sort of like formulate it into a full song there. And it would even like from like the bedroom stuff. Like I would write all the lyrics and the songs. I would never sit down and force myself to write songs. I think it's a bit different to like. Let's say go to like the gym. Like some days you have to force yourself to do that, because of like it's better in the long run. Whereas like I think with songwriting, like you should never have to force yourself to write it, and that's why they have a thing called writer's block, and that's when you're trying to force a song out and it's just not happening, and you should just stop. And I'll just take like a few weeks out because like that's not. Your brain doesn't work in that sense, and there is days where you probably shouldn't force yourself to go to the gym as well. But I would like sit there and a song will come out naturally. I can finish like lyrics for a song nowadays in like 20 minutes. But then like going into it and making it an actual song is a very, very different story. So nowadays, like in terms of writing songs to get them out, I'm in London every other week for the whole week, and Monday to Friday I'll be in like a studio for like anywhere from like 7 to 12 hours, just constantly writing songs because they're just so hit and miss here and there. And then once the song's recorded, it's not done because then it goes off to like get mixed and stuff like that. And there's hours and hours of like mixing and mastering done. I have to go off and like make the artwork myself or get the artwork made. Usually make it myself at the moment because it's quite expensive. Then I have to go off and make a music video, which is also very expensive. It takes a lot of time, and not a single song. Maybe 2 songs have made their money back from what they made, but that's it. So overall, I'm definitely in a loss because it's so expensive to like keep this going, and like things like merch help so much because it means I just have a little chunk coming in that can support like making all this stuff. And I think like going on tour, like we were on about, like it's not as glamorous as saying I want to play these gigs and then we go and play and all that ticket money comes into my pocket. It's like there's a tour van. There's people that have taken time out of work to play in my band. There's like travel. There's hotels. There's like support acts to pay and stuff like that. Like by the time it gets to the end of it, you probably broke even, maybe. And sometimes it's not even worth it. It's definitely just for the other people to hear your music. I love playing gigs live. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's so much that people don't see. I think it's the craziest form of like expression in terms of like any of the medias because it's all this stuff that crams together for 3 minutes and like it just plays in your ears for 3 minutes and people hear this thing and they're like, oh yeah, and they're like, I love that song. And it's like that whole 3 minutes took me so long. It's probably like a really personal experience. Like I spent like 12 hours in a recording studio, like it's been hours of mixing and mastering, and it's just so crazy to see like how much music really comes out. Like you just get pushed into the pool at the moment, and it's just like trying to get that one song that'll just make you go, but it's coming. I can feel it.
I think that's why. I mean, I think you're experiencing what I like to call when I feel it that momentum. Like you can just feel that something's on the periphery, like whatever it is, another opportunity, a personal goal, like whatever it is. And I think that it's very obvious, for people who are in the music industry, are in, the film industry, like whatever industry where there's a massive amount of work before you get paid, before you kind of make it. The single precursor to success is the enjoyment, is the fulfillment. And I think, if you enjoy it and if you love what you're doing, you're willing to put in those hours. You're willing to go on those, the tours that don't necessarily make any money because in the future it will come. You know, you just keep building, you keep growing, you keep getting more people subscribing on Spotify, you get more people turning up to, you know, your gigs. All of a sudden, the not so profitable tours become very profitable. And it's, you know, you only have to look at some people like, I was watching the documentary about Russell Howard on Netflix that he did in lockdown. And he was saying about how he was doing, you know, the stand-up tours for about 6-7 years before anyone even heard his name. And then all of a sudden he was this overnight success. And I think that's something that I think you epitomize quite nicely.
Yeah, there's a lot of
you know, with your work
behind the scenes building that no one sees. But what do they say? There's like, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success, or there's some sort of saying like that. And it's just taking that, especially in music. Like it is just nowadays that one song can change your life, and you could make songs for 10 years. You could make songs, you could release your first song and it'd be huge. And I think that's so special about the music industry at the moment, but also insane because like there is still those people out there releasing a song every month and have been for 5 years that aren't really getting anywhere. So yeah, it's like the Wild West at the moment, but I'm getting there.
TikTok is such a beautiful place for that, though, as well. Like, you know, with the trends and stuff, if your soundbite goes viral, all of a sudden you've got a massive, like potentially a massive career just off one song. I don't know the ins and outs of TikTok too much, but I'm assuming there's some sort of like royalty if you're putting out music and TikTok are using it on a regular basis
from it. Like if people are using your official song, you kind of get some payment from it, but TikTok doesn't really pay well. And TikTok has a thing called the Creator Fund where you get money per view. But like it's just it's pence. Like honestly pence. You get a million views and you won't even get like a £10. So it's crazy. But TikTok is, you said something earlier actually that was crazy because it was exactly the same as what I did. Going back a little bit, you said that you looked at the people who were doing well and you sort of like you know, surgically pulled apart what they were doing and like made your own version of it, which is 100% what I did. Like I just looked at the people that were like getting these millions of views with their songs on TikTok and getting these like streams from TikTok, and I was like, I looked at exactly how they were marketing their things, and I was like, now I need to do that, my version. So it is really, really powerful, but yeah, it doesn't really pay well. TikTok's not really good for money. Brand deals it is.
Yeah. That's the thing. So I think it's just a great enabler at the moment, isn't it? Like TikTok, there's a lot of buzz about it, and particularly over lockdown, it just exploded, didn't it? You know, it went from this app where, you know, people were, you know, it was fun. People were dancing around. You mentioned, you know, I think it was called Musical.ly at one point, wasn't it? And then they rebranded it to.
And as soon as it was TikTok, it wasn't long before everyone found out about it. So it must have been bought out by some American company that started pushing it or something like that. Probably.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like it literally went from an app where within a few months, people were doing these trends where it was like kind of laughed upon because it was kind of still viewed as a children's app, to like now businesses are really starting to notice it because the opportunity is so much higher than places like Instagram and Facebook, where the algorithm like really, really downplays like, and it's kind of a pay to play experience, Facebook and Instagram now, whereas TikTok,
and
it's so open market.
Because it also makes like dreams way more achievable for people. Like you can like be a baker and all of a sudden you're making cakes and you're getting 2 million views a TikTok and you're selling more cakes than you've ever made. Not ever been interested in any social media, and all of a sudden you can make cakes for a living. And it's just like, it's just an insane platform. Like it's so powerful because if what you're doing, you're interested in and passionate about, it will find the people that are interested and passionate about what you're doing, and it's like interlocks you. It's such a clever platform and very, very underrated. But it's changed the music industry. It's probably changed the fitness industry. It's changed everything. Like people are selling fitness courses online through TikTok and making more, probably bad ones to be fair. But people are having music careers overnight. People are having modeling careers from it, acting careers. Like it's such a powerful platform at the moment. And I think in any business, anything where you want to earn money, if you're not using TikTok, you're missing a mark. Like you're missing a great opportunity right now. This could be the easiest time to ever have a platform do what you want to do ever.
Yeah, I mean, I think a great example of that is what's his name?
Francis.
The train guy that does the train watching.
Like now he's getting paid to go on trains. He's got Gucci adverts and stuff.
That's the one. Yeah, but he's got. I was about to say he's got a brand deal with Gucci now.
This is the most powerful age of social media.
He's absolutely
like you can do anything.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and I love it as well. I'm so there for it. His little videos with his GoPro attached to it so that you can see his face. Like I'm so there for it. Instant serotonin here. I'm just like, you go.
On TikTok, and she was finding old stuffed toys that were like just ripped and like had dirt all over them, and people send her their old stuffed toys, and she restores them.
Mm-hmm.
And like out of nowhere, she's just getting millions and millions of views, and she's getting sent all this money and all these like bears to do. And I bet she was making pence from it before that, because like there's a very niche market. But now she's reached people that weren't even looking for it, but like I could do that with my stuffed animal. I could do that with this stuffed animal. Like she's just like now she's full time restoring bears. 6 months ago, she wouldn't have been doing that full time, and it's insane. Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah. It makes me wonder really how long until TikTok kind of cotton on and go the same way that Facebook and Instagram did with the adverts, because I've started to notice they've already started to implement a few adverts. So I think that window of opportunity is probably closing.
I think the one thing that is the bonus though is like TikTok is basically Vine, but it got given the chance to mature, because Vine got cut down because it wasn't having adverts. And the problem is it had no income. Vine wasn't earning any money. So I think there will be that middle ground stage where like you can't blame TikTok for having adverts, because the app's running and making people loads and loads of money because they have adverts. But I do think, like you said, nowadays with Instagram and stuff like that, like they know that Instagram has basically become a promotional tool for everyone, whether you're a model or a musician or fitness or whatever. Like it's become a promotional tool, and they've noticed that, and they don't want you to have free promotion now. So they're like, you got to pay. Like unless you're getting heavy interaction, you have to pay on Facebook to get anything, to get anywhere. Sucks.
Yeah, it's mental. So let's go back to the tour. All right. So I know in like late May, June, start of June, we've got 4 dates. By the time this episode, like people listening to it, you'll be on the tour or you'll have finished that tour. So talk me through like the locations, the dates, what's gone into it, because there's obviously an unglamorous side to this as well. Like you said, it's not just turning up, playing your songs, like cool, amazing experience. Obviously it will be, but what goes on in the background for the preparation of a tour?
For the tour, there is also like, I'm releasing an EP, which is 4 songs. So that 4 songs in general to promote the EP. Those 4 songs is already like countless hundreds of hours. And then there'll be like, there's like, so its whole thing, like the Bubblegum tour is, this will be out, right? By the time I tour? Yeah. Okay, so there's an EP coming out that no one knows about right now. And there's a song called Bubblegum. There'll be like music videos for every single song. This whole package thing comes out into the tour. And then the tour dates, like I mentioned before, like we've got to get tour vans. The guys playing in my band still have to work in normal jobs. They've all got to get the time off. They've also got to get paid, get hotels, and get there. We've got to feed ourselves. I've got to feed the band. I'm currently like living up between my girlfriends and London. So I'm like in Bournemouth, in London, but my band's in Telford. So I'm like bouncing between, like trying to get to there to rehearse, down to here. It's chaos. To be honest, trying to arrange so many things. I'm signed to a management. I have managers that help out a lot, but they're more management for like they don't do everything for you basically, but they're very good with like contacts. So like if I need something, they'll put me in touch with the right places. I very much trust in them to do a lot nowadays. So like they've helped with like getting like an agency in to arrange the tour, and they're going to help me like find the places to get stuff. So honestly, if I didn't have them, it would be I'm chaos. I cannot organize anything, right? I forget to brush my teeth. You know what I mean? Like they help me so much, and like it's really nice to have them, even if they don't necessarily do as much as I think people think that music managers do. It's just having them there to be like, that one person that knows a bit more than you. You know, like if you're, well, none of us like work there, but like let's say we worked in a restaurant, like it's nice to have a manager there. It's nice to have the manager of the restaurant, because if something goes wrong, you've got that manager to go, oh my God, how do I do this? And it's like really comforting to have. It's like having a mom around or a dad around. It's just nice to have them there to go, oh, like, can I have some help with this? How do I do this? And they've been such that for me. Like, it like calms me down because I'm not very good at organisation. So, but they're so helpful. So between them and me, we have to sell all that stuff on our own, pay for everything. So obviously you'll get the money back, hopefully, from the tour is the aim, and selling merch, but you pay for everything yourselves. It's not this glamorous hop in a tour bus and get VIP everywhere and drinks handed to you and stuff like that. At the start of it, it's nothing like that whatsoever. You do it completely for the thrill of playing on stage and for the enjoyment of the other people. But apart from that, it is nothing but detrimental to your bank.
Yeah, I think I've got experience in events planning and stuff like that as well, and it's so stressful. Like even simple things, because nothing ever goes right as well. You know, you'd think it'd be so simple, but there's last minute cancellations. You know, ultimately people let you down deliberately or not so, and then you've got to have, you know, someone's got to cover that, and you've got to figure out things very quickly. So, you know, having a mentor or having a guardian, a manager, admin people, like it's so important, because then you can lean on them and go, you know, this has just happened. They have more experience. You know, they've been there, they've done that, they've lived it for a lot longer. And I think, you know, when I've been doing events and organisation of those events, it's such it takes twice as long at least. You think, oh, that's simple. Like I've just got one night, you know, to organise, and then you're like, okay, cool. Like, what do I need? It might be a hotel, it might be this, but then all of a sudden you've got to think, well, hold on. There's health and safety. There's like the boring stuff that no one actually considers. Because I remember I organised a competition, a bodybuilding competition in Telford a few years ago, and the admin that went into that was nuts. So not only did I have like the event, the you know, the actual location, then you've got, hold on, now I've got lighting people that I need to arrange things with, and sound people, and everybody was different people, and then and then they've got to like communicate with each other, and then if something is miscommunicated, it's Chinese whispers now, and then all of a sudden really something's gone wrong, and you've got to scramble to get it back quick. And there's nothing. I remember thinking after the first show, or before the first show I ever did, like organise myself, I thought, I don't know if I want to do this again. But then when it came to the actual event, I was like, do you know what? The stress, everything was worth it, because it was like my baby. It was like my creation of, and my idea had become a reality. But before that, I'll be honest, I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to do this again. I do it again now because I've seen it, and I've seen like the fruits of your labor. But it's good to hear, not good to hear, but it's interesting to hear that obviously it's the same across the board with any kind of organization, events, management, that sort of stuff. It's just
painful. It's all just as painful. And it's like you said, like you always look at things in hindsight. There's like a saying, a hindsight with a something, but like you like look at it and you're like, wow, that was so amazing, because as soon as the serotonin bit has happened, as soon as you've enjoyed it, you forget all that has happened before. Like you forget how actually painful it is. So you'll go, oh yeah, I'll do that again. And then you get there, you're like, why do I do this? And then you finish, so you go, yeah, I'll do that again. And just repeat the cycle, basically.
Yeah. It's like that drinking experience, isn't it? You know, we've all been there where we've drunk too much, and we're like, oh, I'm not drinking again.
Same with every
and then you get there and you're like, well, this is fun.
Every tattoo I get, I'm like, oh, yeah, definitely get one, doesn't it, that much? Then it hurts. I'm like, fuck, that's so painful. And then like 2 weeks down the line, I'm like, God, I'd love a tattoo.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So those 4 dates, let's talk about it. So you've got Birmingham, Manchester, London, and what have I missed?
Bristol.
That's it, yeah. How did you choose those locations? Like, what was the thought process behind that?
And when you're at like a smaller level, you wanna hit the bigger cities. You wanna hit places that you know they'll sell out, and you kind of wanna be in the middle of like everywhere's far away. So I'm thinking like, if you're up north, even though Manchester's not even that up north really when you think about it, but I'm thinking like we've got a north, we've got like a Midlands, there's one slightly near Wales, and then there's like one in London, which is like for people down south. And like no matter what dates I picked, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I get hundreds of messages. Why aren't you coming to Norwich? Why aren't you coming to Scunthorpe? And I'm like, man, I don't think you understand how this works. I don't know if it's worth coming to Scunthorpe to play to 5 people. Like, it's a really expensive tiny gig. And I think like people, like you said, people like look at it like with this sort of strange, they have no idea. And they don't have to. I'm not saying they should, but like they have no idea how it works. And they're like, oh, like why aren't you coming to like Lancaster? I'm like, man, I didn't even know Lancaster existed until yesterday. I don't know what you like. So I've tried to do it where like I'm not too far from anyone. You know, like a lot of people, like for my first gig, people travelled from like Bournemouth to Birmingham. So I was like, I've done it far enough that if you really did want to see it, you could travel quite easily. I think I did okay. I didn't get as many messages as I thought I would. I get a lot of Southampton. Everyone wants me to play in Southampton, like for some reason. It's just like that's like one of my most listened to cities, and it's such a random place.
You know,
I am.
You're gonna have to put an extra date on, I reckon.
I've messaged my manager.
Yeah. Okay, so mate, thank you so much. Like, this has been beautiful, actually. It's been really nice to catch up. But before we go, and before we end there, is there anything that you want to, is there a message or something that you want to share with people about life, or a message that you just want to? I think
I'll
to get out into the world.
The message that I think would have helped me, and it's that your own timeline only matters to you. You're never too young. You're never too old. And if anyone tells you are, hit them. Don't hit them. Don't hit anyone. Violence is bad, but you get the premise.
Yeah. I love that.
That's the message I need.
That's a great message to share. And Lou, yeah, I think it's valuable. Like I said, that definitely was something that I came across, and particularly now, I'm pushing. I'm 28. I'm about to be 29, and still a certain element of that, because I think as a kid or as a teenager growing up, I kind of thought I'd have things figured out.
Same.
Like a 29, 30-year-olds, like you view them as like these wise adults, that are completely different. But the more I talk to people, the more I realize that no one's got their shit in line. Like no one knows what they're supposed to be doing. They're just kind of free.
You don't really grow up. Like,
and that's amazing, actually. I think.
Like I always say this, like when I look at myself now, I'm older than my mum was when she had me. And like, it's just an insane concept. Like if my mum had me at 24, so like you'd have a 4-year-old kid at like where my mum is. And I just think it's just insane to think that we thought our parents had it together when they don't. They probably still don't. Like, let's be real. They don't know what they're doing either. Like, they're still like living their lives. My mom's just got a new job, so like nothing changes. You know what I mean? You're always just trying to find your way in life for the rest of it. You don't really grow up. You don't settle. I don't think you should. It's way more fun that way.
I love that. That is a beautiful message to end it there, mate. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'd love to catch up. After the tour, and we'll see exactly how that went, how you found it, and what the next goals are for you.
No worries. I'll talk to you on Instagram.
Yeah, man. Thank you.